I would like to say that I work hard at my job. Well, I can, but I don't like to lie. I am a CNC programmer and a good programmer. I can go anywhere in the country or the world and find a job. Most of my work involves reviewing blueprints and writing programs for the machines that actually make the parts. I rarely, if ever, go down to the shop floor to see the machines in action. Sometimes I attend workshops on code changes or new innovations, and I often work with the shop foreman or production managers to make changes to programs to make them more efficient and cost-effective. But my job, thanks to my education, is relatively simple and not stressful at all. I just turned 40 and my life, like my work, is completely stress-free. I live here in South Carolina along the coast. The weather is wonderful and the people are great. I like my life here. I like my life in general, but it's all temporary. I could pack most of my things into my Mustang and be out of here in less than 60 minutes if the situation called for it. I live in a beautiful mini mansion just a few yards from the beach, but it's rented. I make great money at my job, but I'm one of two programmers and my boss knows my situation. In the 4 years that I've lived here, we've become friends, and he's constantly trying to convince me to stay and put down roots. Who knows? Sometimes I think I've already done it. I live with a woman I idolize. I would literally do anything for her, with two exceptions so far. First, we've been together for a little over 4 years, and we haven't seriously discussed marriage. Most of our neighbors think that we are already married, and most of our friends who know us wonder why we haven't gotten married yet. Second, although we both love children and are very happy and very healthy together, we do not seriously discuss the issue of children at all. Kids tend to make things permanent, and like I said, I can leave in an hour. I'm also extremely cynical. I don't take anything at face value and assume the worst in most situations. Despite this obvious character flaw, the friends and neighbors with whom I associate and with whom I have developed close relationships seem to like me. It's no problem when one of our neighbors calls and says his wife is visiting her mom, so he's coming over for dinner. And one or two of our neighbors are always asking to do a grass swap. Before you get any ideas about smoking illicit substances, I'm talking about the practice of mowing each other's lawns during the holidays. You know, I mow their lawn while they're away, and they mow mine when they get back. The homeowners association in our area is extremely strict about lawn mowing, and during the summer months, with wet conditions and high temperatures, the grass grows quickly. But today I enjoy the breeze as I walk to my Mustang. Summer has left us, and the early autumn days here, although warm, are much less humid. When I pull into my neighborhood, I ease off the gas and enjoy how the Mustang's roar and growl calms down to a purr. I drive up to my neighborhood, and from afar, near our house, I notice a group of people frolicking on the beach. I immediately noticed one figure. She is a slender, graceful woman with wild, reddish hair that flies in all directions. Her long legs start running as she tries to catch a frisbee someone threw. She jumps after him and misses, falling awkwardly into the sand. She sits down and brushes her hair out of her eyes, smiling constantly. It's the smile that melts my heart the most. I can see how her eyes sparkle even from this distance. She picks up the offending frisbee and throws it back to the guy who threw it to her. She stands up and adjusts her swimsuit. The top does not require any special correction. Her perky breasts don't really move that much, but the bottoms constantly need adjusting over her round butt. Another man and another woman are sitting on a log near the border between our house and the next one. None of them live there. I know neighbors on both sides, and it's not them. My lips move down slightly. I sigh and get out of the car. As I get closer to the house, I see them in more detail. The second couple, those sitting on the log, kiss. The woman is larger, not obscenely, but she is bigger. I look at her again and recognize her. My lips move down again. Then I see it. A man playing frisbee with a smaller woman grabs the frisbee and walks towards the other couple. The woman also approaches the log, and he puts his hand on her shoulder as if he owns her. I've seen this before, I know how it ends, and there's no point in going through it again. Unfortunately, nature does not want to help me. I was able to drive my 2012 Mustang GT into my garage on the opposite side of the house without attracting much attention. But when I started up again, the powerful V8 engine attracts the attention of everyone in the area. Four heads immediately rise up, and one of them looks into my eyes as I try to back out of the garage. I turn away as if I didn't see her and back away as she starts to move towards me. Her long legs swallow the beach, then the sand, and finally the sidewalk, but all in vain. 412 horsepower sent through four 19-inch wheels and sticky racing tires beats two legs every time. It only takes 5 minutes before a buzzing sound on my belt alerts me that my iPhone is ringing. I take my phone out of my pocket and see that it is her. A happy, smiling photo of her glows on the screen, so I don't answer the call. I have nowhere to go, so I drive along the coast, admiring the beauty of the landscape. South Carolina is one of America's hidden treasures. It is as beautiful and picturesque along the coast as any of the other states on the Atlantic coast, but does not receive half the fame. Can you imagine a state as beautiful as Florida, but without merchants, pensioners, and black traps? Can you imagine Louisiana without swamps? Add some of the most beautiful homes you can imagine, take away the hurricanes, and you get coastal South Carolina. I knew when moving here that I would have to stay out of the interior because it gets winter weather and my pony doesn't really like snow. I came here 48 months ago with the intention of simplifying my life. Weather and snowfall were one of the reasons. In the Midwest, where I'm from, the temperature and snow required me to have two cars. I had a pony for the summer and a Jeep for the fall and winter. Owning two vehicles increased my insurance costs and everything else. As I got rid of all the unnecessary aspects of my past life, my close relationship with my State Farm insurance agent was one of the things that had to go. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is gone. My insurance with a local insurer here is much more reasonable. Fortunately, my policy is national, so wherever I live next, it will be valid. I drive into a tourist area near the beach about 10 miles from home. I take out my iPad and Google a map of the United States. When I look at the map, I remember the first time I walked into that bar 4 years ago. The attractive waitress, who looked very tense, asked what I was looking for. Soft light, warm wind, and soft southern accents, I said. She looked around the bar, then looked back at me and asked if I had room for one more. Georgia seemed like a good choice for my next base of operations. Sitting there, looking at the coast, I realized that this is just one state. This meant he would have almost all the good qualities of South Carolina, so I wouldn't lose them. I made a list of everything I need to take with me, and this time it will be easier because I will have more space. There were so many things I had bought over the past 4 years that I would have to keep. This taught me a lesson about being attached to things. I went into the store and got lucky. There were several payphones along the back wall. I hesitantly called home. I thought that if I was lucky, she would either be in the shower, on the deck, or back on the beach with her new friends. No one responded, so I left a message, which was my goal all along. "Shaz, this is Paul," I said. I returned home early, but as soon as I pulled up, Larry called me with an emergency and I had to go back to work. I don't know when I'll finish. There's no need to wait for me with dinner or anything else. Bye. Everything should be settled, I thought. Then I went to the city. I went to Charleston and saw the film. I watched the new film, Resident Evil, and wondered why they even gave subtitles. What they need to do is just give them numbers like in video games. Anyone who has seen the movie knows that when they leave it on a lead like that, there will be another one. I had dinner at my favorite steakhouse in town. The waiters and manager all wanted to know where Shaz was and why I was here without her. "I'll tell her you asked about her," I said. I didn't give anything away and was still able to politely answer their questions and change the subject. It was about midnight when I arrived at the house again. I turned off the car and went up to the porch. I opened the door and headed towards the stairs. There was no light in the house. I smiled madly. I was filled with joy, so great that it went off scale. The clock is ticking, I thought. In 60 minutes I won't be here, and I'll never look back. I've done this before, and there won't be a scene this time. This time, there won't be an angry confrontation or all that emotional bullshit. That doesn't mean I won't suffer for a while. I really loved Shaza, but I couldn't tolerate cheating. I don't need closure or all this $2 therapy. All I needed was distance and a new beginning. I rushed up the stairs and into the bedroom I shared with Shaz. I pulled out a couple of suits and stuffed all 4 of my suits into them. I stuffed all my underwear, t-shirts, shorts, etc. into my bag and grabbed my toiletry case. I picked up the suits and folded them neatly. I went outside and opened the trunk of the Mustang. They fit, and there was room for a bag too. I quickly ran through the house and grabbed my bag and all my shoes. I took my 2 pairs of sneakers too. I then filled the case with cables and connectors for my iPhone, iPod, iPad, and laptop. I looked at my watch, only 30 minutes had passed. Then I remembered that I forgot my tracksuits, running clothes, and pajamas. One more bag and I was done in 45 minutes. As I stepped out onto the porch to lock the door, seconds away from freedom, I heard a tearful voice. "You forgot something, didn't you?" she asked. The longing in her voice was deeper than anything I had ever heard in my life. She got up from the swing at the other end of the porch and came over to me. I saw her face as she stepped out of the shadow of the porch awning and into the moonlight. Even in almost complete darkness, I saw the swelling of her eyes. She sobbed and stood in front of me as if she was waiting for an answer. I decided to go all the way. "I think I took it all," I said. "I'm sure I forgot a few things. But if it's something I really need, I'll buy it again." "What about me?" she asked. "Shaz, you're happy here," I said. "The rent is paid until the end of the month, and I'm sure Larry will agree to work something out with you after that." "I must have done something terrible," she sobbed. "This morning when you left, you kissed me goodbye and woke me up for no reason." "I didn't wake you up for anything," I said. "I woke you up to say you love me, even though you've never said it," she spat. "And there's no way to wake it up because A, I already knew that, and B, if you're going to run away from me like a coward at night, thinking I'm gone, you didn't mean it." "Shaz, I started. "Shaz, huh?" she asked angrily. 12 hours ago, when I brought you lunch, it was Shaz, and you tried to convince me to lock your door and make love on the floor of your office. 4 hours later, you pulled up here in the driveway and drove away again. Half an hour later, you called and left me a message, which turned out to be your first lie. Or second. "When was the first one?" I asked. "When you said we had a future," she spat, "and you're really good at it. I believed you. Then I waited for you and worried about you for 7 damn hours. I cried and hoped that everything was okay. You know, I've seen this before. A guy gets into trouble with gambling or illegal substances. He comes home, picks up his family, and moves out in the middle of the night, knowing he can never return to this town. I didn't know why you were doing this. I just knew that no matter what happened, it didn't matter because the 2 of us would be okay. As long as we're together, we'll be fine, I thought," she said. "Then I noticed that you weren't looking for me to pack my things. I sat here in the dark. I wanted to enjoy this porch one more time. I think we both love this long porch. You can't even count how many times we—" Our eyes met in the moonlight and her words faded. "God, I'm so stupid," she said suddenly. "That's it, isn't it? Poor, stupid Shaz, lying on a swing with the man she loves. The only man she's ever loved, having sex with her, wondering deep in her heart when he'll finally let her have his child. Now I see everything. For a while, I thought we were running away from something, or that you just had trust issues because you never told me about your past. Now I see that it's not trust issues or children. It's me who you don't want. I'm good enough for you to spend part of your life with me and have sex with me for a while. But our relationship always had an expiration date, and we reached it, didn't we?" This made her cry even more again. "Shaz, none of this is true," I said. "My heart is breaking more now than you will ever know." "Stop calling me that terrible name," she screamed. "Strangers, people I barely know, call me Shasta. You always called me Shaz. When you start calling me Shasta again, It means I did something which made you very angry, and you don't love me anymore, and I can't stand it. You know you killed me, don't you? She asked. In the morning, when I woke up and found out that you had left, I would have died. I think you're overreacting a little, I said. Then you're a damn fool, she spat. You don't know anything about me. Shaw. I hesitated, not knowing what to call her. I know everything about you, I said. Do you know that you are my heir and I will be lost without you? She said. Do you know that since we left where you found me, every damn day has been a miracle? Do you know that I would rather work in the garden and cut the grass with you than do any exciting or glamorous activities? And our lazy days are my favorite. You know, those days when we only get up to pee or eat. Those days when we're too damn lazy to shower, and you just sit there and look at me and say all the stupid things you like or say you like while we both stink. But it's our stink, and we. She started crying and reached out to me. I dropped my bag and reached for it too. We sat on the porch swing and just held each other until she stopped crying. Paul, what did I do? She asked after some time. Please tell me. Give me one more chance, and I swear I'll never do this again. You are a young woman, I said. Maybe it's time for you to move on. I'm 30, she said. You're 40. Nobody even pays attention or cares about us. We're pretty normal. What started this? And be honest. Don't have this nonsense about me going to work. I went to your work to be with you while you were working late, and you weren't there. Damn, I should have thought of that, I said. Why did you have to? She asked. Why did you have to come up with ways to deceive me? If you need something from me, or need to do something, or let you do something, why not just ask me, fool? I gave you my heart. I will do anything for you. Now answer my damn question. What have I done? I said nothing. You know, today is the start of a strange day, she said. I learned that I don't have to go to work today. That's why I brought lunch to my beloved. To whom? I asked. Well, she grinned, I cannot call you my husband, and calling you my boyfriend sounds so. Schoolboys. Anyway, after I brought you lunch, I decided to bring some firewood to the beach. I thought that when you get home, we'll go there and light a fire. I met a woman there. She's renting one of those cheap apartments a few blocks from here. She's plump, but nice. I chuckled at this moment. She's nice, she said sharply. She had a hard life. She made a lot of bad choices when it came to men. She was married and her husband just left her. Why did he do this? I asked. She said they had problems in their marriage, and instead of trying to solve them, the guy just left her. What a loser. Anyway, she hasn't had any luck since then and decided to come here to try to find him and bring him back. Sounds familiar. Must? I asked. Hell yes, she said. This is what I would do if you could get away from me. I will search for you until the end of the world. So this guy who sat on the log and kissed her is her husband? I asked. No, it was just some guy she met on the way to the beach. She's a friendly lady, she said. This guy and his friend. You mean the one who had his hands all over you? I asked. Her eyes widened. Oh no, she said. Paul, that's not true. It's not like that at all. He put his hand on my shoulder and I made him remove it. I told him that I have someone, and if he can't respect that they should leave our beach. I would never do anything like that. I couldn't do this to you. I love you. You know that, right? You must believe me. I swear. I'll get Michelle to talk to you. He removed his hand as soon as I told him. We were just playing frisbee. Paul, I wouldn't do that. She was becoming hysterical, and I began to realize that perhaps I had jumped to conclusions too quickly. Okay, I think I believe you, I said. No, I'll make Michelle prove it to you, she said. I know you. I don't want to talk to Michelle, I said. I trust you much more than her, and you shouldn't trust her. Why not? She asked. Because she told you a bunch of lies, I said sharply. She pulled me onto the porch swing and held my hand. How do you know she was lying? She asked. I admit you're right about her kissing that guy she just met. It's really strange if she's really looking for her husband, but who knows, maybe. There are no maybes, I said sharply. If you and I broke up, and you were looking for me like you said. Paul, trust me, she said. You will not leave me for any reason. I won't do anything stupid to lose you too. But let's say we had a misunderstanding. I began. Like what happened this afternoon, she said. I nodded. If you were supposedly looking for me because you wanted us to get back together, would you be running around and kissing and doing God knows what else with every guy you met on the beach? I asked. I think you're right, she said, squeezing my hand. I just thought she was friendly. I know I'm right, I said. And let me tell you, honey, no guy wants to be with a woman who is friendly. We'll have sex with them. We will be friendly with them too, but we will not be in any relationship with them. They always end up hooking up with some guy who didn't know they were friendly. Besides, I said as she lifted her legs onto the swing and pressed herself against me, Michelle is not just friendly. She is a frank woman of easy virtue. Shasta sat up and stared at me. Even under the light of the hunting moon, I could see her eyes widen. You know her from somewhere, don't you? She asked. Remember the guy she's looking for? I asked. And she nodded her beautiful head, which caused her wild hair to fall over her shoulders. It was a spectacle that I never tired of watching. Remember the loser, as you called him, who ran away from her? I asked. It's me. No, you're not him, she said, almost purring, squeezing my hand and pressing herself even closer to me. Stop making jokes, Paul. I sat down and picked her up too. Her full name is Michelle Holly Williams, I said. She is the same age as me. We grew up just 2 houses apart in Grayling, Michigan. We got married when I graduated from college. We were married for 14 years. We lived in Grayling, and I commuted to work in Saginaw every day. This trip took me almost 2 hours each way every morning and every evening. I left home at 5 in the morning to be at work by 7. I left work at 3:30 and was usually home by 5 or 5:30 depending on traffic. The trip was just over 100 miles each way. I suggested moving to more southern areas several times, but Michelle never wanted to leave the area because all our friends lived there. I don't know why I never figured it out. It took me 14 years to realize how friendly Michelle was. Sure, there were a few drunken incidents where she kissed someone or let someone touch her, but mostly I thought we loved each other. I believed this until the day the power went out at the plant and I returned home 2 hours early. I pulled into my driveway and walked into the house to find one of our neighbors sitting nervously in our living room. The first thought that came to my mind when I walked into our bedroom and saw Michelle opening the windows and trying to organize her clothes was, what would I find if my exhaust wasn't so loud? Steve walked away and Michelle was just looking at me. She asked why I came so early and I told her about the power outage. Our other neighbor, Jim, stopped by while we were talking. He was also surprised to see me. He asked to borrow our lawnmower and I told him it was in the shed. It upset Michelle. Why do you let people use all our stuff whatever they want? Jim will never buy a damn lawn mower if he can borrow ours every week, she said. I only let them take things that don't matter, I said. Michelle did cook dinner. We ate, and then I went for a run. After our run, we went down to the lake and looked at the stars. That evening, I asked Michelle if she was happy with our life, and she said yes. So happy that she started kissing me. I realized that she expected us to have sex right there by the lake. I think she should expect it because we've done this literally hundreds of times. She even started saying that maybe it was time. We were in our early 30s, so maybe it was time to have kids. I pretended I was too tired. The next day, I also left work early. I found myself a divorce lawyer in Saginaw, near the plant, and asked him to start the process. I just wanted a simple divorce without admitting guilt. I will go my way, and she will go hers. The papers were not that complicated, and it only took him a few days to prepare them. I didn't think Michelle was stupid. I waited a few weeks, during which I did not change my habits. I wanted her to go back to her normal behavior. About 3 weeks after my initial suspicion, I left work 3 hours early. I parked about a mile from home at a shopping center, and ran through the forest to the house. I quietly walked to the door, which was not locked, and entered the house. I stood there with my phone in my hand and put it on the table to record what was happening. Michelle cheated on me with Steve. I think that's what hurt me the most. The fact that they were so calm made me believe this had been going on for years and wasn't a big deal to them. Get out of here before Paul gets home first. Why are you so damn angry? He asked. He hasn't had sex with me since the last time he came back early, she said. I think he suspects something. Even as she said this, she looked up and met my eyes. Oh no, she said quietly. Steve's head turned almost in slow motion until his eyes met mine too. I'm really sorry, buddy, he said. I do not even know what to say. Whatever you want to say, tell it to Kelly, I said. Paul, we don't have to involve her in this, do we? He whined. It'll almost kill her. Steve, just get dressed and get out, I said. Michelle and I need to talk, and I need to get myself together. I took the phone from the table and stopped recording. Steve gathered his clothes, and when he came towards me, I hit him. I called 911 and got an ambulance. Other than one hit on a guy at a picnic, I hadn't hit anyone since middle school, and my arm hurt like hell. Steve regained consciousness before the ambulance arrived. I called Kelly and explained everything to her. She burst into tears on the phone and said that she would not come to the hospital and that Steve would find another place to live. I suggested that she use the same lawyer as me if she wanted a divorce. This way it will be cheaper for her because all the research and all the evidence in the case has already been collected. When I started talking about divorce, Michelle stood up and started crying. I went to the kitchen to get some ice for my hand. I think Michelle was in shock the whole time because she didn't even bother to get dressed. Kelly and I talked on the phone for over an hour. Part of it was because I was trying to explain to her that it wasn't our fault. I told her that she is the victim in all of this. All she did was work tirelessly to provide for lazy Steve. She is still an attractive woman, and she will find a better man. She will find a guy with a job who will treat her the way she deserves. I think we were both in better spirits when we hung up. Michelle tried to apologize to me, but I was not ready to listen to it or talk to her. I went to the car and brought a folder with divorce documents. I gave them to her and asked her to sign them, and she looked at me like I was crazy. Paul, you can't be serious, she said. This is the first time I've done something like this. We were married for 14 years. You can't seriously want to throw it all away for nothing. I know you're hurting, but I don't think you're thinking clearly. I love you. Do you love me? We were talking about children. This will pass, and it will never happen again. Everyone deserves a second chance. Michelle, stop lying, I spat. It didn't just happen. This happened for a long time. You just relaxed because it went on for so long without getting caught. I knew what was going on 3 weeks ago when I returned home due to a power outage. So I waited until you felt safe again. You said it yourself. You told Steve you thought I was suspicious because I didn't want to have sex with your dirty ass. So you've known what's going on for a month now, she asked. I nodded. Then why didn't you say anything? No wonder we didn't have sex. You just let him keep sleeping with me. You should have said something so we could work this out. I felt bad and guilty from that day on. You just weren't sick enough to stop, were you? I asked. She lowered her head and started crying again. And as for saying something, I already told you, I only give people things that don't matter. At the time, I had a 2004 Mustang GT with almost 200,000 miles on it. I got into the car and left the house. I went into town and had a good meal in a restaurant. I overheard a couple of my friends already discussing Steve's jaw surgery. They laughed about it. I think the gossip has already spread throughout the city. When I returned home, it was about 7 in the evening. Michelle was waiting for me, and she was not alone. Her parents were there, and they brought the local priest. Her father came to me and said they were here to talk about saving my marriage. I just laughed and went into the house. The priest asked me to sit and pray with him for a few minutes. I looked at him like he was crazy. I learned this technique from my first psychology class in college. When you enter a new and possibly hostile environment, you need to turn it into neutral territory as much as possible and give yourself, if not an advantage, then at least equal conditions with your opponent. Group prayer would make my home a more neutral place, and the priest leading the prayer would make him the authority figure in the situation. "No, thanks," I said. "Why are you here?" "Well, Mr. and Mrs. Williams told me that you and Michelle are having problems in your marriage. They also told me that through me the Lord can intervene and put you two back on the path to marital bliss." "No," I said, and went into the bedroom to start packing. Son, what do you mean, no?" he asked. Michelle and her parents were stunned. This didn't go at all as they expected. When I started emptying the boxes, her father reached his breaking point. "Paul, stop doing this, and at least show enough respect to sit down and talk like a civilized person," he shouted. I threw a pile of clothes into a suitcase and sat down on the bed. I looked at Michelle, then at her parents. I looked at the priest last. "I can give you 5 minutes," I said coldly. "You were married 14 years, my mother-in-law said. "Certainly." "There's a movie called Gone in 60 Seconds, I said. In it, Nicolas Cage was a car thief, a film about car theft. He was so good that he could steal any car, regardless of make or security system, in less than 60 seconds. My plan here is similar to this," I said. "I want to get out of this part of my life as quickly as possible. I can't do it in 60 seconds, but I can do it in 60 fucking minutes. Over the past 14 years, I have loved and supported your daughter. I loved her until 3 weeks ago when I found out she was cheating on me." Both of Michelle's parents gasped loudly, which let me know she hadn't told them the whole truth. The whole house smelled like sex. There was a guy in my living room, one of my ex-friends, trying to pretend he had just walked in. Michelle was in my bedroom trying to open the windows and ventilate the room. I didn't say anything then because I didn't have evidence. I gave her enough rope to hang herself. I waited until she felt safe again, and then I came home early. I took out my phone, opened the video, and showed it to them. "This is what I found when I got home," I said. Michelle's mother turned away. Her father got angry. I could tell he felt like a fool. He came here to save his little girl, only to find out that he was lied to. The priest told me I could stop the video. "The question here is not who is to blame," he said. "We knew there was a problem here when we came here. Now we know more about the problem. We have to figure out how to solve the problem. We must also find out the root of the problem. What would make a woman who loves you enough to try to save her marriage do something like that? We are all human, my son. We are all subject to temptation." "The clock is ticking, father," I said. "So let's wrap it up. Side 1, it's me, offers a quick divorce without admitting guilt. We'll split everything in half. Michelle will stay home. It's paid. She'll keep her car, I'll keep mine. Our cash and investment will be split in half after deducting the cost of the house. In other words, she will get a house, her car, and some money. I'm leaving for better places and starting my life again. It's beneficial for everyone. If we don't do it this way, then it will be messy. We will have a very public, small-town divorce where I will file on the grounds of infidelity. Her reputation and her family's reputation will be ruined, and we will still split everything in half because no matter what judge we get, Michigan is an equal property state." "But Paul, what if I don't want a divorce?" Michelle said. "What if I love you and want to stay married to you?" "Then you shouldn't have opened the doors of Steve and the others you slept with," I said. "This is not what I want," Michelle said as she angrily signed the papers. "And I'll give you time to lick your wounds. I know I was wrong and hurt you, but I love you, Paul, and I will get you back." As soon as Michelle gave me the papers back, she started talking about starting over. Maybe we could go back to square one and try dating again. I laughed, and the mental clock in my head showed 49 minutes since I started packing. Her parents stood in front of me, wringing their hands and looking sad, but the clock showed 53 minutes. The priest offered to pray for me. His words echoed in my head as the clock showed 56 minutes. The loud sound of my V8 tore through the evening sky, and I released the handbrake at 58 minutes and 14 seconds. At 59 minutes, I was already racing along the road to my new life and have not returned since. For some time, I followed what was happening in the city and with Michelle. Kelly divorced Steve, and he became homeless. He was a town bum for a while, and then he just disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to him. Michelle was depressed for a few weeks and then started partying madly. It took her a year or two to spend all the money. She became a city woman of easy virtue. No one with self-respect would want to be with her. Most of the guys visited her sometimes on the weekends, but during the day, if she walked along the street, they crossed to the other side. I lost contact with her after that. You know, I really didn't need to know what was going on in her life. By this point, about 2 years ago, I had gotten to the point where I no longer cared about what was left behind. My life was next to me and ahead of me. About a month after I left Michigan, heading south, I walked into a bar in Tennessee and my life changed. I went there depressed and didn't trust anyone. I left there still depressed, but optimistic. Well, at least hopefully. I've never looked back since then, I said. Well, said Shasta, what was the reason for this big change in your life? She batted her huge eyes and smiled. She knew that was when I met her. Maybe you should trust her a little, whoever she is. Maybe she feels the same about you. Maybe now that she knows what happened, she understands why you're so paranoid. But I have to be honest with you, Paul. You hurt her a lot today. Because, purely hypothetically, in the 4 years that you have been with this new girl, she has never even thought about cheating on you. She did not have any drunken episodes. Even if you only watched for 10 seconds, you would have seen her remove this guy's hand from her shoulder. His hand felt like it was burning her. I mean, her shoulder. She just didn't belong there. She looked at me, and I saw sadness in her eyes. It really hurt her that you could so coldly throw away 4 years and her whole future with the man she loves, without even a chance to explain. And part of her wonders how you could divorce Michelle so easily after so many years without talking. Didn't you want to know why she did it? No, I said coldly. Why she did it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that she did it. She cheated on me. She broke our marriage vows. Marriage vows are like a contract. If you break a contract, it is void. The reasons why she broke the contract are irrelevant. Maybe it would put her mind at ease a little if she had a chance to explain what happened. Well, to hell with her soul. She did, so our marriage was over. I read all the stories on the internet. I've heard all the reasons, and none of them matter. She changed. We ended it. Case is closed. Well, you still seem very bitter towards her, she said. Maybe closure would make you a better person. I don't need closure, I smiled. I didn't even think about that fat, easy-to-eat woman until I saw her on the beach. She is no longer a part of my life, so her reasons and motivations don't matter. She's just not a person you can trust. Are we going to go inside? She asked. Or are you still leaving me? I just smiled at her, thinking about how I really feel about her and the mistake I almost made. I stood up and extended my hand to her. Nope, she chuckled. Carry me. I dropped my bag and picked it up. Shasta only weighed about 100 pounds, and I easily carried her into the house and kicked the door to close it behind me. I carried her up the stairs and threw her on the bed. Take off my clothes, she said quietly. We made love. You're very lucky, she grinned as I laid down next to her. I'm really lucky, I echoed. I've been lucky since I walked into that bar in Tennessee. That's nice, she smiled. But that's not what I was talking about. You're lucky I love you, because that would make everything for sure, she said. Then she turned and pressed herself against me, pulling the blanket over us. Don't we need to take a shower? I asked. We're all sweating. Shut up, she said. I love our smell, and I'll change the sheets tomorrow anyway. A few minutes later, I asked her. What would that do? I asked. If you weren't so paranoid about this and allowed me to stop taking the pills, we would definitely be pregnant by now, she muttered. I fell asleep thinking about it. Paul, wake up, Shasta said sharply. I thought. About what? I groaned, noticing that it was still dark. I looked at my watch and saw that it was only 5 in the morning. Do you think Michelle was playing with me? She asked. I mean, think about it. What is the likelihood that she will come to the same state where her ex lives? Then she accidentally ends up on a private beach where she shouldn't be and meets the woman of the very man she's looking for and wants to be with again. There are too many coincidences. Do you think so? I said. Don't worry about it. Let's just live our lives. We are divorced. She has no influence on me or you. But what was her plan? Asked Chaz. Did she think that I would share you with her? Or did she just not think I was important? Did she think that I would just watch her make advances to you and not do anything? Chaz, let it go, I said. I love you. She doesn't matter. Shasta sat on the bed with her mouth open. I thought she was having a heart attack. I started trying to fall asleep again. What you said? She asked me. I said Michelle doesn't matter, I grumbled. Nah, buddy, before that, she chuckled. Did you say you love me? Don't make a big deal out of it, I said. You never told me this before, she said. I was sure her voice had become higher. I always tell you that I love you, and I always say that you love me, but this is the first time you said it yourself. Say it again. I'm taking it back, I said. She leaned towards me and started kissing me. Ugh, she screamed. What is that thing on your face? Is this barbed wire? Go shave and come back to bed so I can kiss you again. We ended up taking a very early shower together, which took twice as long. Paul, Shasta said sharply, I want her fat ass. Trust me, darling, her ass won't look good on you. Your ass is perfect. Her ass doesn't even look good on her. I've seen some horses and donkeys with smaller butts, I said while sipping my coffee. I want her ass, and I want it bad, Shasta growled. Shaz, I didn't know you liked women, I said. Joking as much as you want, she said seriously. But that bitch acted like I didn't matter at all. She really thought she could just show up and get me out of the way to get you back. I went to work that day, and Shasta called me several times. When I got home, she looked like she was ready to explode. Guess who's coming to dinner, she said happily. Sidney Poitier, I asked. Who is it? She asked. No, Michelle, your sly, fat-assed ex-wife. And she still plays games. I just looked at her. Why are you talking? I began. She still hasn't told me who she is or that she knows you, she said. So I teased her a little. I invited her to dinner and we ate on the terrace. I made sure that Dana was on her terrace too. If you don't trust me, you can ask her. There were no men there, just me and this fat woman. I know how jealous you are now that you admitted that you love me and all. I thought I took it back, I said. No, I didn't, she said. PPP. What the hell is P cubed? I asked. Not P cubed, she chuckled. You know, I hate math. PPP is me. I'm your personal private pussy. Proud private dad, she grinned. Once you pull your head out of your ass, we'll be pregnant many times over. What does this have to do with Michelle? I asked. You'll find out after dinner, she chuckled. We'll have to go shopping after she leaves. About an hour later, Michelle showed up. Shaz let her in while I was working out and watching the news. I walked into the living room and saw Shaz and Miss Furtrees were sitting there. I pretended I didn't know who it was and turned away. Paul, honey, you're being rude, Shaz said. Michelle is my friend. Shaz, I said, making my voice as dramatic as possible, Michelle is my ex-wife. Shaz looked shocked. I didn't know, honey, she said. Her acting was worthy of an Oscar. I didn't know either, Michelle said. Her performance was not that convincing. I mean, what are the odds? You look good, Paul, she said as she walked towards me. And you look fat, I said. You still can't carry all this anger, she said. You have a wonderful home and a girl who loves you. Let the past go. Forget it. Those who forget the past, I began. I don't really want to forget the past, she said. But I have to admit, since we're here together, there are things that I want to talk to you about and maybe get it off my chest. We never talked about what I did. Maybe this will be a lesson for Shayna. My name is Shasta, Shaz said sharply. We sat down at the table while Shaz set the table. You know I loved you, Michelle began, and I know that you loved me. You worked tirelessly to give me everything I wanted. Obviously, that wasn't enough, I said. It was more than enough, she said. If I could go back before it was all over, I would never have made that mistake. The problem was partly the area we lived in and partly me. It seemed like nothing ever happened there. It was so quiet, so calm, and so boring. You went to work every day, Paul. You had problems at work. You had production schedules. You had clients from out of town who needed to be entertained. But I had nothing. I literally sat all day waiting for you to come home so my life could begin, she said. Sometimes someone would come to see me during the day. Steve didn't have a job either. He didn't have the skills, and I guess with the house paid off, what Kelly was making was enough to keep them afloat, so he stopped looking for work. Nothing started between me and Steve until about a year before you caught us, so it wasn't something that lasted for a long time. In fact, it started when you hit that guy at the 4th of July picnic. Remember, I got drunk and the guy grabbed me. You hit him. He was also drunk at that moment. Anyway, when you came back to work on Monday, still mad at me, Steve came by to return the punch bowl I lent to Kelly. We talked for a while, and he mentioned that incident at the picnic, she said. So these are the breasts that made poor Ralph puke, he laughed. I wonder if Paul will show up if I touch them too. Before I knew it, he did it, she said. And we both had these really stupid looks on our faces. It was just a joke. Steve wasn't worth much without Kelly in his life, and my life hasn't been the same since you left. Anyway, it lit the fuse, but it will be weeks before we have sex. I knew it was wrong, but the thought of some man out there wanting a piece of my ass bad enough to risk his marriage was exciting. And as I told you, my life was pretty boring. Besides, I started gaining weight, and it was nice to know that someone other than you thought I was attractive. When we finally had sex, it was exciting, but only because it was another guy. You were the only man I was with, and it was just different. Over time, it also became quite boring, but it was better than just sitting alone all day watching soap operas. If I had known even for a second that it would have cost me our marriage, I would never have done it. I've thought about this several times. What would I do if you ever found out? I was sure that you would give me a second chance. Paul, you always said you loved me and would do anything for me. I really thought you'd give me another chance. If I didn't think like that, I would have fought harder. Remember, I told you even after signing the papers that I would come back to find you. I never thought I'd be too late and you'd be with someone else. When you left town, I became depressed. I really didn't know how to live without you. Another factor was that you left me the house. My lawyer later explained to me that I owned the house, and the value of your half of the house was deducted from my bank balance. That meant you had a lot more cash than I did. The first year I just squandered money that took us, or you, years to earn. I guess I thought I'd have fun, and maybe you'd come back then. But you didn't come back. I started looking for another man and found many men. They had sex with me, and none of them took me seriously. None of them ever asked me out. Most of them have never been seen with me in public. I became a city woman of easy virtue. Then I found out that while I was spending money left and right, I was running out of it. There was also the fact that you always took care of things like my car, insurance, and taxes. I was pulled over for drunk driving. I found out that I don't have car insurance. The policy has expired. Then the taxes on the house, which I hadn't paid since you left, came due, and the house ended up going to a tax auction, and I found out that my house was up for sale and I had to move out. I found myself in a complete mess. I couldn't get any money without selling the house because I'd spent all the money in the bank. I couldn't sell the house without paying taxes. Damn, I never understood what to do. The county sold the house right out from under my feet. The new owner wouldn't even let me rent it. Kelly never forgave Steve either. She did exactly what you told her to do. She took her time and found another guy who treats her well. Neither she nor he speaks to me. Steve was found last winter. He froze to death in some hut on the edge of town that he broke into. He had been dead for several months when he was found. That was enough for me. I didn't want to end up in the same situation. I borrowed money from my parents and came here to find you. I heard from several people in town that you work at a factory nearby. What I didn't expect was to come here in vain. You already have a new wife. Well, it was nice to see you, Paul. I think I'll try going back north. Maybe my parents will take me in for a while. Okay, great story, I said. Goodbye. And one more thing, she said. Shayna, never cheat on Paul. He will never forgive this. I never will, Shaz said. He's mine. I don't need anyone else. Shasta walked her to the door and talked with her for a few minutes. We spent the rest of the night laughing at her and making love by our fireplace. We never went shopping. Paul, we need to go to a party this weekend, Shasta said the next day. I looked at her strangely. Michelle invited us to her going-away party, she said. I'm sure she's planning something to get you back. She'll probably try to separate us. And then, when she is alone with you, she will say how small and immature I am and that you need a real woman. Then she will try to have sex with you, and you better not do that. You'll tell me about it right away at the party so we can laugh about it, and then we'll leave. When we arrived at the party on Friday evening, it was already in full swing, although it was not a real party. It was held at a local bar, and you had to pay for drinks. There were only 4 or 5 women there, and most of them were older and, shall we say, curvy. Michelle came over to us as soon as we walked in and brought us a bottle of beer each. She practically ignored me, but she took Shasta by the hand and led her to introduce her to everyone. I was distracted for just a second, and Shasta disappeared. There were only 2 places she could be, either in the room behind the bar or in the toilets. I didn't see them go behind the bar, so that meant either the women's room or the men's room. I didn't see them go behind the bar, so that meant either the women's room or the men's room. I didn't see them go behind the bar, so that meant either the women's room or the men's room. I went to the women's toilet. It was empty. There was a guy standing in front of the men's restroom. The toilet is busy, he said. I nodded and turned as if I was about to leave. Then he turned around sharply and hit him. I opened the door and saw Shasta surrounded by 3 guys. No, she kept repeating as they tried to touch her. Damn, how much of this stuff does it take to put her down? Asked one of the guys. Michelle wants to have sex with this bitch. She'll need a lot more than you have, I said. Their stupid start on me. I stuck my head into the bar and yelled, "Call the police," to the big guy behind the bar. He handed the phone to one of the women and then jumped across the bar with a baseball bat and asked what was wrong. He walked into the restroom, and I pointed to the 3 guys and Shasta. They drugged her with illegal substances and brought her here, I said. I think my ex-wife Michelle wanted to spend some time alone with me. They went out and detained Michelle as she tried to escape from the bar. When the police arrived, we were all taken to the station. All 3 guys gave Michelle away. She talked them into it. She paid them to try to have sex with SHZZ and filmed it to show me that Shaz was also a woman of easy virtue. Michelle gave Shasta illegal substances in her beer. Each of the 3 guys was jailed for 6 months. The judge felt that even though they didn't have time to do anything because I stopped them, they needed to be given a good lesson. Michelle no longer had to worry about finding a place to stay. She became a guest of the state for the next 5 to 7 years. Since she is serving time in a women's prison nearby, I visit her every few weeks to taunt and tease her. Within a few weeks, my life changed too. One morning, I woke up and Shasta wasn't smiling. She raised her left hand with her finger extended. No, it wasn't the middle finger. It was the next finger. I want you to take the day off today, she said. I called Larry and he didn't mind. By sunset, there should be a ring on this finger. I looked at her and nodded. Are you serious? She said. Yes, Shaz, I said. It's time for us to get married. I got out of bed and headed to the shower. Wait a minute, she said. You have all day. I'll even go with you, but choosing a ring won't take all day. She rushed at me, knocking me back onto the bed, and started kissing me. Damn, she suddenly said, jumping out of bed. I almost forgot. She took out a packet of pills from the drawer and threw them in the trash. Where are we staying? She said, smiling slyly. I ended up talking to Larry, and we bought the house we lived in. 5 years, 3 children, and a dog later, we are still happy and Michelle is still in prison. I won't be able to escape my life in 60 days, let alone 60 minutes, but I couldn't be happier.